Last night was. Both the Knicks and Celtics are founding franchises of the NBA. Neither of them had ever played a game like this before. The 16-point halftime differential makes this the largest halftime comeback in Knicks playoff history and the largest blown halftime lead in Celtics playoff history. I mentioned that when Boston took that 20-point lead, our analytics gave them a 98.3% chance to win. Windman, you were there in the building. How would you describe the atmosphere and as that second half of just bizarre nature played out? What was it like in the building?
Well, the Celtics get a 20-point lead midway through the third quarter, and I think the Celtics fans were like, well, we've seen this about a dozen times over the last 2 years. It looked like they had the game in hand. And then they just decided, why not just shoot a three literally every possession? You know, in the third quarter of this game, Greeny, the Celtics took 20 shots. 19 of them were threes. I have never heard anything like that. 19 of the 20 shots they took were threes. Jay mentioned earlier, of the 10 possessions after they took a 20-point lead, 10 possessions that followed, only went inside the three-point line once. They missed their next 10 shots. All of them were threes. And so the Knicks didn't even have to hit the gas too hard. And all of a sudden, they found themselves back in the game. And that is where the Celtics screwed up, because allowing the Knicks to believe and having the finisher in Jalen Brunson open the door, the Knicks walked through it. And really, there's no excuse for the Celtics to blow this game, but really no excuse for the way that they did it. Basically, allowing the Knicks in by just taking so many threes.
Go ahead, Jay.
Look, Grinny, accountability is hard. And Jayson Tatum is this team's best player, and it's his team. And when it comes to the half-court decision-making, that is his responsibility. He is an elite passer in that capacity. And I think what we saw last night, especially in the fourth quarter, was extremely poor shot selection. Not just from their whole team, but especially from Jayson Tatum. And there's a lot on the line here for him this year, especially considering the way he won a championship last year and then had multiple, not one, multiple DMPs for USA basketball in Steve Kerr. So whatever you want to put behind that, fine, but that's what it was. So coming off that season, I think you have to see a different Jayson Tatum as it relates to shot selection in game two, because it was extremely poor and he settled for a ton of contested threes and they were bad misses.
Let's talk about him a minute. Can we put up A18, please? Tatum wound up accounting for 23 points last night on 23 shots. Down the stretch, he was 0 of 7 from the floor, including 5 missed threes in the fourth quarter. In the overtime, he took 2 shots, made 1 of them. Allen.
They hunt for his matchups against Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns in pick and roll. That's what they do all year, because Brunson's too small. Towns' feet don't move well enough to be able to deal with him. They got away from that. The Knicks made an adjustment. Certainly, they wanted to get OG Anunoby on him. But you see here, there's Brunson. He's shooting over Brunson. Those are shots that he would normally make. Here's one where he gets it back and keep going right there, right again, against a smaller player. That's where it looks like a lot of settling goes on. That's, of course, at the end of a quarter. But first of all, I understand it's a game one, and I understand the Celtics, not counting last season, have given us reason to believe that they get into places where it's maddening to watch them play. But I also know that this is a team that has shot under 30% from three this season, and they take a ton of threes 12 times. They've lost 8 of the 12. So that's the problem. The problem is it's only 12 times. They don't normally do this. And I think that if we are looking at this as something that is to be expected throughout this series, don't. If the Knicks were doing what the Magic did and taking away those threes and they weren't making them, different story. If they were a ton of contested, you could say maybe the defense, they found something, they figured something out. This was a cold night for a team that was off for a couple of days. I do not expect this to be a trend in this series.
To Allen's point, while I'll underline it again, 45 of the 63s they took were deemed uncontested, and they only made 13 of those 45. So, yes, it's a make-or-miss league. They missed a bunch of shots. This, however, is the formula. And I would argue, Winman, as we're sitting here, if you just watched the game last night, I wouldn't say the Knicks played great.
No.
I don't think the Knicks played the best they're capable of playing either, and they still won the game on the road. This series just got very interesting,
Yes.
I guess is what I'm trying to say, Windy. I had been feeling it all along that we had just given it away. Like we were talking about this, like it was a series that shouldn't even bother to be played. And it might still wind up with the Celtics in 5. Obviously, they could rattle off a bunch of wins in a row. Do we know anything about Porzingis? Windman, he did not come back after halftime. Do we know what the situation is with him?
Yeah, it was a strange situation because he obviously started the game. He did not play well in the first half. He did not play well in the last round, to be honest with you. And when you hear that he goes off with illness, which was sudden, he was out on the quarter and then went to the back. None of us were quite sure why he went to the back. Al Horford was kind of rushed in to start the second half. And then midway through the third quarter, the Celtics announced he wasn't returning with illness. After the game, Joe Mazzulla said he hadn't talked to him yet. He did have that sickness, that viral syndrome that affected him throughout the middle of the season. He missed several weeks with that, but I'm not connecting the two. I just want to point out that that did happen. So that is a factor because Porzingis not being in there eliminated a major option for the Celtics offensively, and they had to lean on Al Horford more than they would like to. They always have to watch his minutes. But even despite that, the Celtics had plenty of opportunities to take control of this game and let it go. And it was not a good Karl Towns game at all. The Karl Towns can play much better. So if you're a Knicks fan, you're looking for a better game from Towns in the future, which could affect an outcome.
And then, Jay, just to go back to the point that you were making, I hear you, what you're saying about Tatum and the decision-making, but it just feels like it is just so ingrained into their philosophy, sort of into the DNA of this team. You would know, I wouldn't, because you're the guy who's had the ball in your hands to make those decisions, and obviously I never have. Is it up to the person initiating the offense to decide where they're going to go, or are they so trained to look for and try and set up the open three regardless, that's what they're looking for no matter what other decision the guy with the ball in his hands might be thinking of making?
It's a read and react system, and I think all those players have the freedom to make the right reads. And if you're making the right reads, a lot of your reads also depend upon feel, Greeny, right? So, hey, the read could be take the jump shot, but the feel is that my jumper is off. There are other ways to find your rhythm, and that's what you expect of a team full of veterans. We aren't talking about a young basketball team. We're talking about a team that has won a championship. We're talking about a team that has continuity and playing together for years. So, like I said, I think if they could redo it again, they would have attacked the rim differently and got to the free throw line a ton.
Tatum said as much after the game. We played that in the sound a little bit earlier. We'll see. In the meantime, let's do more or less looking ahead at the matchup that begins tonight, Timberwolves and Warriors. All these numbers are brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Let's start with Steph Curry, Jay Will. If we add up his total points, rebounds, and assists tonight, will it be 37.5, more or less?
I'm going to go less just because of the short day of rest. Wendy talked about this the other day, and now obviously we've seen teams come off that and play well and win. But look, to me, this is going to talk more about Jimmy Butler and Anthony Edwards in that matchup, so I'll go less here with Steph Curry.
Let's get to Butler then, Windman. Total points plus assists for Butler is 28.5 in tonight's Game 1. Which way do we go?
I also went less.